part of the reason why I think there's a bunch of videos, or why it's taking so long, is because they're just monopolizing me, because they know that I'm like a one thing at a time kind of person. So basically, like, because I'm one thing at a time, and I don't like to just like stop what I'm doing and move on to something else if it's not working, then they'll essentially like hold me down in a location, you know what I mean? So like, if I'm basically like, if you want to bog me down, right, or if you want to hold me in a location, just fuck up what I'm doing. It's really simple, and they already know that. They're like, yeah, like, we can totally, like, if we want them to stay in Union Station longer, you know, today or whatever, just like pause his fucking video loading, you know, pause his fucking video basically uploading onto YouTube, because that's his routine, you know. So I'm like, literally, I'm here, like, I've loaded I don't know how many videos up to YouTube or whatever, and like, I'm like, every time it's just like, it takes like no time at all. And then today, like, I was thinking of going to get food earlier, and then like, I'm literally like sitting here getting hungry, and then I'm like, oh, you know, my video's taking forever to load. And why is it taking forever to load? Like, I'm not sure. In my opinion, it's basically like they just want me to hold it down here for longer, because there's probably a fucking parade going by of, like, you know, clones, and they don't want me to see the clones, basically. So they're like, yeah, we got to keep the clones separated or something, or the glitches separated, so that, like, because if they run into each other, stuff will get extra glitchy, and then, like, we don't want that, because then they would, like, without a doubt believe that, like, you know, reality's like totally fucked and that they're slaves. We don't want them to believe that. So like, we got to get them to like hold it down in this location for longer, because there's too many of the fucking glitches out there at the moment, like in this time loop, and that would cause like a massive disturbance. Yeah, so it basically froze at 97%, and then I'm like, okay, well, it's frozen at 97% for the last hour, so like, I'll go back to it, try to like open it up again, and then it just went, like, I opened it, and then they're like, oh, canceled, and then I was like, oh, okay, you know, canceled. So then I like reactivated it, and it's like 1% again. I'm like, okay, so like, does that 1% count for the fucking 97% I loaded before? Nope. It's just like, just here to like suck up your time, you know what I mean? Because I know phones actually work better than we think they do. I'm actually pretty sure about that. Like, honestly, I had a really good conversation with someone. I basically posted something to Instagram with regards to having black boxes, right? And then like later on that day, I basically was talking to someone, and I was like, yeah. I was like, literally, like, when I'm at the end of my life or something, like, they can literally just have me fucking walking around fucking reality forever, right? Or like for the rest of my life, basically. And then at the end of my life, they just like crack, and then they just like take the chip out, and then, you know, like, they can basically like review it, you know. So like, if we have basically like, they're like, oh, well, you know, like, they just look for basically, you know, like keyword searches, right? So I've had a Facebook journal or whatever that I did, and I was basically like, I was talking about this concept too. So there's the keyword search. So basically you could do like an emotional search, right? So like, basically all the times in my life that I had basically like a spike in basically like some kind of feeling, whether it be like romantic, or funny, or sad, depressing, like anything, right? If I had a spike in anything, basically like, it could take an entire life of 100 years, right? And then backtrack and go through and sort, basically like, and sieve essentially all of the micro events that were actually meaningful, right? So like, you could live 100 years, and then it will just take the most meaningful parts and basically and that'll be the meaning of your life. So like, let's say you have like 3 seconds of your life that was like super meaningful, you know what I mean? And the way, like, and that will be the reason for your life. Those like 3 seconds, that'll be the reason for your life that the aliens were interested in, and you'll continue living in case you have another like really interesting 3 seconds, right? And then like, so we're all basically just like dash cams. You know what I mean? If you think of your eyes and your experience as a dash cam window, right? You're just going around and like that's your life. You're just basically like fucking dash cam window or a perspective, right? And then like in that perspective, like I'm watching a bird drink from a water fountain right now. Like it's beautiful, right? At the same time, I'm like okay, like it's the same sort of thing basically, where it's just like, yep, they're like, okay, well, how do we view so like I have a video journal right now that's being like consolidated or whatever that I'm trying to do it myself wise, right? But like if somebody's like, let's say like I found this moment like really interesting, like looking at the bird in the water fountain in the train station, right? It's not, because like they would be able to tell, because I don't actually have like a spike with regards to like an emotional response, right? So like when your emotional responses die, I think or like whatever, like somebody else might have an emotional response, right? So like maybe like they'll have a cloak consciousness like within your body that essentially like has reactions for you. So like if you do, like let's say you're sleep deprived, right? Because you could be a window perspective and you're sleep deprived, right? So like basically anything that happens around you is going to be totally fucking like, you're not like, you might be bored by like the most extreme thing ever, right? But like, you know, what ends up happening is basically like the Matrix or whatever would be like let's say a plane goes down and fucking crashes like right in front of you, you know what I mean? Like basically like the person on board that plane might have like the most gigantic fucking spike ever, right? With regards to like emotional feelings, right? And then they just go like, oh well, what were the other cameras around there doing? You know what I mean? Oh well, this guy was like totally fucking sleep deprived, like on the sidewalk or whatever, and like, but we can pull his consciousness up, and then like they pull my consciousness up, and I'm kind of like just like waking up or whatever, and then like basically like right before the crash, I'm like looking kind of like, you know, like the crash is happening over here, but I'm kind of like looking over here, so it's basically like just in the line of sight, because I'm just like zoned out as hell, right? So I'm just zoned out as hell, and then something goes like, and it crashes over here, and they're like, oh well, we caught like kind of a perspective of it, you know, like, and yeah, so like the 3 seconds of that person's life that was meaningful was when they were totally sleep deprived on the side of this fucking street, and you know, something super substantial happened around them that they weren't even conscious for, you know, and that's the meaning of life, you know, for like a lot of people. And I'm like, wow, that's really fucked up. Like,